Tonight, I'm so delighted to be able to chat with Sue Stone from England. Thank you very much for being part of this exhibition, Ain't the Archies. So I was wondering if you could introduce yourself to us all and tell us a bit about you.
Okay, well, I live on the east coast of England, in northeast Lincolnshire, and I was actually born here in Grimsby, but I actually moved to London to study first fashion design at St Martin's School of Art, and then I went to Goldsmiths to study embroidery. And I was very lucky because Constance Howard was head of the course at the time, and embroidery was taught as an art form. So I've never had any sort of technical embroidery education, but lots of art education in stitching. And my work is mainly hand stitch focused, but I do also use machine stitch and mixed media, but they tend to be as a supporting act, really. I spent 28 years as a designer of clothing when I left college, and my husband and I had a business which manufactured clothing as well. And I came back to embroidery in 2002. And since then, I've exhibited my work in, well, far and wide, really, yeah.
Yes, as far as downtown Newcastle in Australia.
Yes, yes, I think that might be the furthest, yeah.
Do you enjoy doing faces and portraits?
Yes, I think I did try, when I came back to stitching, I actually, because at Goldsmiths I never did anything like that. It was all sort of fairly abstract in the 70s, and you know, that's exactly what I did. But when I came back to stitching, I tried out lots of different things, and I went through making landscapes, and I made a lot of historical pieces based on tiles and all that sort of thing. But then I decided to make a self-portrait, and it was actually a wedding portrait because I haven't got any wedding photographs. So and that wasn't by choice, it was just because the best man forgot the camera. So it was so it was a very small wedding, and as I say, he forgot the camera. So years and years later, I thought to myself I should make a wedding photograph of my husband and myself, and I based it on the American Gothic painting. So it was set out in a similar way. Well, once I'd made the first one, then I had to make a series. So I made 5, and they were all in my very first exhibition back in 2006. So I've been working with faces since then, really.
And why are you called Woman with a Fish?
Well, that's all down to my Grimsby heritage, because Grimsby was once the busiest fishing port in the world. And so it's sort of a nod to the past, really, because my dad was a fish merchant, and you know, I spent a lot of time as a child going, well, down dock we called it, going down dock with my dad because he was a workaholic. And so if I hadn't have decided I wanted to go down dock with him at a weekend, I probably wouldn't have seen him all week or at the weekend. So so I suppose it's a nod to that, really.
Do you include fish in your work?
Yeah, I often, I mean, the fish has sort of become my signature. I don't include it in every single piece, but where it's relevant and where it refers to my hometown, then I will put a fish in somewhere. Sometimes they're very small, and sometimes, you know, people don't notice them at all, but they are often there, yeah.
Because Emily Tull, who's another UK fibre artist, has done a portrait of you with some fish in it. So
that's right, yeah.
Are you two friends?
Yes, I do know Emily. I've met her a few times because I'm actually part of her, she's got a group called So, which is the Society for Embroidered Work, and I'm actually part of that. So that's how I came to know Emily, and how at the exhibition we had a couple of years ago, she asked me would I let her make my portrait for this exhibition. So it's, yeah.
And you've seen
it? I said yes. Yeah, sorry?
You've seen your portrait?
I haven't actually seen it in the flesh, but she sent me a picture of it, and it looks great. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's very beautifully done.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so I was very pleased when she asked me, and I'm pleased with the result. Yeah.
Yep. And you chose Constance. You spoke about her earlier. She was involved in your early training, wasn't she?
Yes. Yeah. She was a big influence on me, because having never done embroidery when I applied for the course, she actually, I didn't have a formal interview because I'd already been to St. Martin's, but I didn't finish my degree there. So I'd written personally to Constance to ask if she would look at my work and consider me for the course. And so I had this sort of informal interview with her. And she said, "What embroidery have you done?" And I said, "Well, actually, I've never done any embroidery." And at the time, I was working in a town hall in Deptford, just as a temporary filing clerk. And so what I was doing, because she said to me, "Well, yes, I'll give you a place on the course," because she'd liked what she'd seen of my fashion drawings. But she said, "You must do some embroidery before you start, just to make sure you like it." So I was going to work, and I had this office on my own, and I was doing the embroidery under the table in case anyone came in for a file. And then I was taking it along to show Constance once a week before, on the run up to starting the course in September. So yeah. And also, she gave such good advice to everybody, and she was so enthusiastic. She made you want to do the stitching. But I always remembered that I said to her once, "Look, I don't know many stitches, and I'm really sort of unsure whether I actually know enough. Do you think I should learn some new stitches?" And she said, "Sue, you don't need to know many stitches, but what you do need to know is how to use those stitches really well." And that's always stuck with me. And I still only use a handful of stitches, probably less than 5 different stitches, but used in lots of different ways. So that's what I actually learned at Goldsmiths, was to get the best out of what you could actually do, and just learn a new stitch if you need to. If you want it for a specific thing, you can learn it and use it.
So I imagine Constance has had a huge impact on fibre art scene in the UK, because there's so many of you who have gone through Goldsmith.
Yes, yeah. I mean, she had a very far-reaching influence, really, because she also spent a lot of time in the USA. So she had a lot of students over there, because she went every year to do a lecture tour over there as well. And a lot of those students came through and came to Goldsmiths. In fact, my best friend at Goldsmiths was actually an American who came over, who'd met Constance in Buffalo, New York State. But yeah, I mean, she was a big influence on textiles embroidery in the 20th century, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm delighted that you chose her. It's good to do a homage to someone that's had such a big impact in the world of fibre art.
Yes, yeah. I knew straight away when you asked me to take part in the exhibition who I would want to do a portrait of. And I just got to thank Jambini and Jean Littlejohn for allowing me to use their images from their book as well, because without those, I wouldn't have had the images to work with.
So thank you so very much for having a chat with us tonight about your portrait of Constance in Ain't the Archies. I'm so delighted to have you as part of this show.
Thank you for having me.
It's a shame you can't be over here with us.
Absolutely, yeah.